Hey everyone, welcome to week 4. I'm going to do this video a little differently than I have done some of the other weekly announcement videos because I actually want to pull up the agenda here on the screen and share it with you because this is a pretty important week and I want to make sure that you understand exactly what you need to go through and what homework assignments you have for the week. Again, it's a pretty important week. So I'm going to go ahead and share the agenda here. Okay, and obviously first, you're going to have to take the week 4 attendance quiz in order to access the lessons and assignments for week 4. And you know that the questions on the week 4 attendance quiz will be based off of the material from week 3. Okay, so hopefully you have already gone through week 3 and you're ready to take the week 4 attendance quiz. If you're a little behind, you're going to need to catch up so that you can take the week 4 attendance quiz and keep moving forward with the course. Again, this is a pretty important week, so you really don't want to get behind this week, okay? After you take the attendance quiz and you have access to the rest of the module, the first thing you'll see under the attendance quiz is a brief review of week 3. Then we have our first of 3 lessons this week. There are 3 lessons and they are super important. The first is on APA format basics. This is just a lesson that literally explains what APA format is. Some of the rules that you have to follow with APA format, why we use it, how it's different from other formats that you might use in college. So it's a really important lesson. You have to go through the PowerPoint, the first sub-tab, right here where it says required PowerPoint APA format basics. You have to go through that. And you also have to look at the handout, the sample APA essay. That's in the second sub-tab. The third sub-tab is the video lesson where I go over that PowerPoint and that handout, just like here in this format. I'll have it up on the screen and I'll be discussing everything in the PowerPoint and handout. So, you want to watch that video so that you get my explanation to go along with the PowerPoint and handout. But at the very least, you must look through the PowerPoint and you must look at the sample APA essay because those are 2 of the requirements in order to access project part 2. Okay. The next lesson is on reference entries. Again, so important. You have to look through the PowerPoint on reference entries. You have to look through the handout, which is a sample reference list. And then the third sub-tab in that lesson will be the video where I show you the PowerPoint on the screen and discuss it. And then that sample reference list, I actually create it in real time in the video. So you're going to see the finished product when you look at the handout, but in the video, you're going to see me actually create that reference page. It's so helpful. You need to know this information, not only because of some of the things that are required of project part 2, but also because when we get to project part 3, your rough draft, there are some things that I cover in this lesson that you have to at least have attempted to do in your draft before I will accept it. So I cannot stress enough how important that lesson is on reference entries. The third lesson, equally important. It's all about citations. This is crucial. Now, you do not have to go through this lesson for project part 2, but it will be a requirement to access project part 3. So you might as well just go ahead and do it this week since it's part of this week's lessons. You have to look at the PowerPoint, and then I give a video where I go through the PowerPoint and you can see it on the screen with me. Citations are essential for your rough draft. If you turn in a rough draft, project part 3 in week 6, when you work on it, if you submit a rough draft that doesn't have citations, I will send it right back to you and say, you need to fix this before I'll even read it. So, I will discuss more about project part 3 when we get closer to it, but you just need to know that these lessons here in week 4 are super important. They are, you really need to go through every single element, the PowerPoint, any handouts, the video lessons. This is where I teach you how to use your sources in your essay without committing plagiarism. How to make sure that you have the prerequisites that you need in order for me to accept project part 3 when we get there. And these are so important, okay? Our homework for week 4. First things first, you'll notice here, let's go, oh, there is no discussion for week 4. You have enough work, sorry, my phone is telling me that channel 5 has an alert for me. No, thank you. There's a lot of material to go through this week, and one small assignment and one big assignment. So no discussion, okay? Just know that right now. You do have a journal this week because we do need to follow up on the poem that we read in week 3 discussion. So you do still have your journal, okay? So watch the videos in the journal prompt. You know, there's the instruction video and then the follow-up video where I discuss the previous week's discussion poem. Complete the journal by Sunday night. The other item for homework this week is project part 2, okay? There will be a video in the instructions for project part 2 that you really need to watch. You really need to make sure that you understand exactly what you are being asked to do in each section of project part 2. Right now, though, what you need to understand are all of the things that are required of you to even be able to access project part 2. And you can see there are 12 of them. If you are keeping up with the coursework and you're keeping up with the homework, this should not be a problem. You should already have everything you need accomplished when it's time to start working on project part 2. But I'm going to go through this list just to make it clear. Obviously, you can't access project part 2 until you have submitted the week 4 attendance quiz. You can't access project part 2 unless you have submitted project part 1 and received feedback from me. Project part 1 was back in week 1, so there really shouldn't be anyone who is still missing that item. But if by chance you are, just know you won't be able to access project part 2 until you submit project part 1 and get my feedback on it. The next item that is required is to have viewed the PowerPoint on thesis statements back in week 1. So again, if you're keeping up with the class, you should have already accomplished that. But just know that if you skipped it, you're going to have to go back and look at that PowerPoint on thesis statements in week 1 in order to get access to project part 2. Same thing with the 4th item here, the PowerPoint on introductions in week 2. All 4 PowerPoints on paragraph development in week 2. The PowerPoint on conclusions in week 2. So all of the lessons in week 2, all of those PowerPoints, right? Because there was 1 PowerPoint on introductions, 4 PowerPoints on paragraph development, and 1 PowerPoint on conclusions back in week 2. You have to have gone through all of those PowerPoints. It's required. Week 3, you have to have gone through the PowerPoint on research getting started and the PowerPoint on using sources and avoiding plagiarism. That doesn't mean downloading the PowerPoint and looking at it on your computer. That means going to the sub-tab for the PowerPoint and seeing the PowerPoint on the screen in bright space, okay? You have to go through those PowerPoints. That applies to all of them. For week 4, you need to have viewed the PowerPoint on APA format basics. You need to have viewed the sample APA essay handout, the PowerPoint on reference entries, and the handout for the sample references list, okay? Now, when you go to the agendas for these weeks, you're gonna see the word required next to each item. So like if you go to week 2 module and the agenda is there on the screen, you're gonna see the word required next to each of these items. And that's a clue, okay, that's what she's talking about. That's what I have to have gone through in order to access project part 2, okay? So just know that you have to have completed all 12 of those things in order to access project part 2. If you have skipped any of them, project part 2 will not appear for you, right? If you are unsure what you're missing, contact me. I think I can help you figure that out. But again, if you have been keeping up with the lessons and the assignments each week, you should be in good shape. So just pay attention to the list. And if project part 2 isn't showing up for you, then you know you're missing something from this list. Try to figure it out. If you need my help, I will assist you as much as I can to get you where you need to be in order to access project part 2. Okay, I know it's a lot, but hopefully it's smooth sailing. Hopefully everybody's been keeping up and you've looked at all these things already. And by the time you get through the lessons here in week 4 and you've done the journal and you're ready to start project part 2, it's going to be there for you. Okay, and be sure to watch the video in the project part 2 instructions. Okay, all right. So big week. If you have any questions, run into any problems whatsoever, reach out to me right away. If you go through these 3 lessons this week and something's just not clicking with you, reach out. I will help you via email, phone call. We can set up a one-on-one Zoom, right? These lessons are crucial. So I want to make sure everybody is understanding them and sort of getting the gist of how to use your sources without committing plagiarism. I'm here to help however I can, okay? Otherwise, you guys are free to go ahead and get started.